So I'm going to kick off this talk by playing a video, and then I will go on to run through some slides, and hopefully that will fuel some questions afterwards. So I will share the video now.
We are in a time when technologies are converging to make it possible to form an interconnected, immersive world. A new chapter in digital evolution. The journey to establish the metaverse has started. This could be the beginnings of a new economy. To redefine the customer experience. To redefine business. To redefine the way we connect and interact. To redefine opportunity. To redefine our economy. The future is now. The future is the metaverse.
Okay, so I wanted to play that video really to try and bring together what the metaverse opportunity is about, and the sort of world that we're talking about, which is immersive, which is interdependent, and really examine the role of 5G in this world that we're entering. So the topic today is, some think it's a myth, others believe it's the future of the web. What are the implications of the metaverse of 5G? And we're going to sort of go on a journey and sort of end up with some discussion points. So what is the metaverse? So it's a digital world, and this is my definition, a digital world which exists alongside the real world. And I think that's very, very important to get across, that this metaverse will not exist in isolation, but for the metaverse to really be effective and add value, it must exist alongside the real world. And where you have a customer journey or a customer experience, you're expecting that the metaverse will add value or augment that experience. And it provides a shared virtual reality experience, economy, business models, and interoperability across users, ecosystems, and communities. So somewhat describing this as a lifetime shift, this immersive world of, interaction, interoperability. Some of the sort of statements we have on the metaverse are a sense of immersion, interoperability, interoperable digital identity, real-time interactivity and collaboration, interoperable exchange of value, so carrying value across different environments, ecosystems, games, and other applications, digital leisure and beyond, many concurrent users seeing the same things, gaming, retail, social media, digital ownership, some of the things that we associate with the metaverse. And of course, the metaverse needs to be accessed, and the symbol we have for that at the moment are the AR and VR glasses. I believe that mobile, over 6 billion handsets in the world, will also be pretty critical to accessing that. And of course, why we're having this discussion is that people won't be in their homes, only in their homes accessing the metaverse. But if it really is supposed to be a $5 trillion US dollar opportunity by 2030, and it's supposed to embrace all these different areas, then you're expecting that a big part of the access will be 24/7, 365 mobile. So how have we got to where we are now? So if you look at this sort of picture of of Web 1 to what we call Web 3 and then we call WebX, the metaverse. We started off with sort of e-commerce or the .com bubble, which is Web 1, and out of that came Netscape, Google. You could argue Internet Explorer also came from this. And Web 2 is where we really started to see more value. And this is where you had read, write, and you saw Google Plus appear. You started seeing the social media platforms, Facebook, the over-the-top sharing economy platforms, Airbnb, Uber, Spotify. And those are what we call Web 2 sort of organizations. In parallel, and maybe pushing a bit further, we've seen what we call some Web 3 token economic platforms appear. So things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, MakerDAO, which is a layer 2, have appeared. And this is the cryptocurrency revolution, which has given rise to things like DeFi and NFTs, etc. And now we get into the interesting part of what we call Web 2.5 to Web 3, where essentially you're seeing some of the Web 2 companies like Facebook rebrand to Meta, and really enter this sort of metaverse world, but with a Web 2 structure. But you're starting to see new Web 3 platforms appear like Web Sandbox and Decentraland, which are singular metaverses that allow people to have games or to own land, etc. And the question is, how do we then move from where we are at Web 2.5 to Web 3? And a big part of that will be data. So the data economy is forecast to be 3 trillion in 2030. And then the bigger part of it is, along all of this journey from Web 1 to Web 3 has been connectivity, and how will connectivity and 5G need to evolve to support Web 3 and WebX. So let's look at the size of this metaverse opportunity. A lot of headlines on metaverse, and what's interesting is against a backdrop in 2022. So from November 2021 to September 2022, Bitcoin and other leading cryptocurrencies, which you could brand as Web 3, lost over 70% of their value. What's interesting is that for the first 5 months of 2022, there was 120 billion invested in the metaverse, and some of the current positions, there's over 55 million daily active users on Roblox, which is a interactive platform or gaming platform. 500 million invested in metaverse real estate. Nike, who bought a NFT company, made $185 million from sales associated with that. 11 million XR headsets shipped, a lot of them 80% produced by Meta. And there is an optimistic feeling among consumers about the metaverse, right? And if we look at how this goes forward, 2024, Bloomberg are estimating that the metaverse opportunity will be worth 800 billion. McKinsey in 2030 are estimating a metaverse opportunity of 5 trillion. And by 2034, 2035, we're seeing, depending on whose forecast you're looking at, anything from sort of 10 to 30 trillion in terms of an opportunity for the metaverse. So pretty significant. At the same time, we're going to see the population increase, and we're going to see the mobile phone population or numbers increase as well. And some of the headlines here is obviously Facebook rebranding to Meta and essentially transitioning their 2.6 billion users. Microsoft's acquisition of Activision, the game maker Call of Duty. Google are investing, and we're waiting to see where Apple lies. So that's the one sort of big factor we haven't seen. And what's going to drive this opportunity? So we're looking at a US dollar 5 trillion opportunity by 2030. What's going to drive this? So Some of the things that will drive this, according to Citibank, is smart manufacturing, virtual advertising, online events. Morgan Stanley are seeing immersive connective experiences, so online concerts, collaboration, replacing offline activity, so house viewings, vehicle test drives. McKinsey are seeing a huge $270 billion opportunity in 2030 for academic learning. Can the metaverse transform the way we go to school, college, and university? Can this immersive experience, really transform that from a geographic point of view, and from a scale point of view? They're also seeing digital advertising as key and gaming as pretty significant as well. Some of the things associated with the opportunity that I see are social media. So at the moment, we've got Web 2 social media. Imagine if that was really immersive. Imagine if you could be like we're actually in the same room with people we're communicating with. And so I see metaverse social media being important, data and AI as a service, where more data is going to be produced in the metaverse. How is that going to be processed, and how can that help to personalize and drive the customer experience? And the other one is going to be security. As more and more of us go into the metaverse, as more data is produced, as more value is transacting, how do we secure that? So just breaking the metaverse down from myth into building blocks. The metaverse exists in a number of parts. The middle one here, which is the experience, is what we've been focusing on. So often when you see a picture of the metaverse, you will talk about, you'll see the AR, VR goggles, and it's all about the immersive experience. That is only one part of it, and that will develop. And I believe that connectivity, mobile, and the glasses and access to the metaverse for those experiences will evolve. I think one of the key things is to have a $5 trillion opportunity. It can't just be glasses. The metaverse has to be something that we can access on the move, wherever we are. So I think connectivity will be important, but also the way we access it will need to embrace mobile. But that is a key part of it, and we focus on that. The other side is that if the metaverse is going to exist alongside the real world, then the touch points and interaction between that virtual experience and the virtual business and the virtual economy and the virtual citizen, with the physical world, then becomes pretty important. And you have to have some interoperability, some link between virtual and physical. Obviously, key to that would be something we call decentralized digital identity, where something happens in the real world, and I believe people will be existing in the real world, but maybe their job is in the metaverse. It's a virtual job they have. Then how do you get paid in the real world? How do you sign contracts? How do you trace things back, your activities back? So you need a digital identity that can embrace both the physical and the real world. A good candidate for that is the mobile phone and the mobile phone number, which could exist in the virtual world, but can then link back to the physical world. Other things to consider are obviously 3D printing, wallets, blockchain, which can provide trust between these two ecosystems, in-life stores, mobile, and connectivity. The other side of it is the data. So we know that now we're producing more data than we've ever produced before. In the metaverse, this will only accelerate and multiply. How is that data going to be stored? How is it going to be used? How are we going to drive inference from it? That's going to be pretty key, and it's a key building block to the metaverse. The other one is finance, and a lot of as the metaverse becomes a more significant part of GDP, so $5 trillion by 2030 is quite a significant part of GDSP. Some of our wealth and our earnings and our assets will be in the metaverse. Can we leverage them for finance? Can you get a mortgage in the metaverse to buy a piece of land? Can you get paid in the metaverse? How will you transfer that value across? So these are sort of things that will be important, and we've seen from the Web3 world, decentralized finance, NFTs, CDBCs, CeFi, which are sort of traditional finance, all merging in the Web3 world. How will that occur in the metaverse? And then how can some telco, 5G be a part of that? And then there's different businesses that would be part of it, an ecosystem. And then the most important thing is that you know, the metaverse cannot exist in isolation autonomously, but you know, policy, economic policy, social policy, you know, safety policy, privacy policy, all need to extend to cover this new virtual world, and that, I think, is where we need clarity going forwards. So what are the keys to the metaverse? So I've sort of highlighted 6 of them, right? So one is AI and the data economy. You know, absolutely critical how we handle data, how we look at it, how we process it, how we get inference from it, and that will be the differentiating factors for success and not having success in the metaverse. The infrastructure needs to scale, including processing, so we've got the right level of rendering, so we've got the right connectivity. But infrastructure needs to extend as well. The token economy, which is how you sort of have a new economic model that can span these virtual worlds, where you can tokenize assets, where you can carry them, where you can transact them, where you can hold value. This is the token economy, which I think will embrace to extend across the metaverse. I think it will be key. You know, and the other one is obviously digital identity. So an identity that will allow us to embrace you know, activity in these new world. You know, those of us who have different applications, you've got different passwords. Single sign-on was one step forwards, but where you need a frictionless entry into different ecosystems, then that decentralized digital identity, a portable digital identity, a passport, in line with things from the European Union like eIDAS, you know, will be critical. Connectivity, being able to connect in the metaverse, you know, things like 5G extending to 5.5G will be important, you know, so that we've got the connectivity and the processing power for it. And then the other thing is that we're moving towards a world of wallets. So away from bank accounts to a wallet that can hold identity and different credentials, including payment and connectivity. And I believe that the development of wallets in line with things like eIDAS 2.0 from Europe will be pretty important. And then the last one will be how we secure ourselves in the metaverse, and how we tackle things like quantum. I wanted to highlight sort of in practice some of the considerations for 5G. And I believe that that connectivity and identity start to merge in this world with wallet. And this is just basically some considerations that in the evolution of communications for the metaverse, that, you know, we come from a world of physical to physical communication. So, you know, you can call someone on their phone, you know, or communicate with them, and that's a physical to physical communication. Increasingly, you will be contacting people who may be on an app or on a virtual metaverse type environment. So that's what you call physical to virtual, and there's some messaging and some development and evolution that's happening there. And then increasingly you have virtual to virtual. Now the key thing is that in all of those instances, physical to physical, virtual to virtual, and physical to virtual, you need an identifier that is consistent. You need to be able to have KYC and AML, and this is where essentially the phone number, you know, could act as a great sort of identifier that can cross both of them. And if you're looking at some of the what I call layer 2 connectivity things, obviously network slicing, Open RAN, common network. You know, some of the announcements around hologram calling, you know, are going to be absolutely critical to accelerating this. But essentially, the message we're trying to get around here is that, you know, with the metaverse, how we communicate will need to evolve, and it will need to anchor to a digital identity. Another interesting thing from Valery Buterin, who's the founder of Ethereum, is that he basically, you know, was talking about how, you know, Ethereum and layer 1 blockchains can evolve. And he basically said in 2032, so that's only 10 years away, you know, he sees nodes, so these are blockchain nodes running on mobile phones. And this will obviously be an opportunity and a challenge for 5G and the networks. But what it's showing is that, you know, as we look to have trust and consensus extending to power this sort of metaverse world and the underlying trust and identities, that mobile, can evolve to play a very significant role, even in terms of powering Web3. And the headline here is, can mobile phones power blockchain consensus? There's some development, but certainly Valery Buterin is thinking so. The other thing is metaverse of things. So one of the platforms I'm involved in Vodafone is the digital asset broker. And the digital asset broker is providing interoperable identity for IoT devices, using the SIM card. It provides a wallet, it provides interoperable identity and the means for the device to sign and transact. And that was one evolution, which is the Internet of Things to what we call the economy of things, opening devices and enabling them for business. But there's one step further, which is the metaverse of things. And as you look at the role of IoT devices that are connecting, that are producing data, this becomes very, very important where you have digital twins of devices that are producing data, that are receiving data for the metaverse, and which are bridging end-to-end business models like supply chains. So that's another consideration, and obviously 5G being pretty critical to that. The other thing is NFTs. So can 5G play a role in the NFT economy or the token economy? And I think critical to NFTs, which have really been embraced. We're expecting an 80 billion market by 2025. We now have rentable NFTs. NFTs can be digital certificates of ownerships. There's huge marketplaces. 5G essentially will allow these NFTs to be linked to connectivity, will allow these NFT markets to exist in a dynamic anywhere, everywhere marketplace, and essentially can provide hardware secure module security for transactions and signing, which can include Internet of Things devices that are autonomous. How do we secure the metaverse? I'm going to start motoring here just to get through this. And can 5G play a role? So some of the challenges that the metaverse are bringing up from a cybersecurity point of view are digital impersonations. So how do we verify establishing competence in who you are in the metaverse? How do we identify bad actors? How do we look at deep fake? How do we identify new types of fraud? Interoperability. So how do we secure identity across different worlds? How do we secure the data? How do we secure value transactions across different worlds? So the emergence of CBDCs and tokens. Account takeover. How do we protect against new ways of stealing your credentials and taking over your account? And how do we make sure reprovisioning is secure? And how do we protect data? And in this, again, I think that telcos and 5G will play an important role in that security from a hardware side, from an edge side, and from ultimately a cryptography at scale point of view. Quantum is obviously a threat both to telco and Web3 cryptography. So quantum compute estimated to be here in around 10 years, from a beginning scalability point of view. But some of the things that it breaks is RSA and elliptic curve technology. Elliptic curve being particularly relevant for blockchains and private public key infrastructure, cryptography, and some of the things that are coming are lattice-based and code-based and multivariate cryptographies. And this is obviously a challenge for telco and 5G as well, to make sure that we are scaling quantum-proof technologies as we go forward, and that could be an opportunity. Just looking at all these things coming together, 5G can play a role in the economy of tokens. 5G definitely plays a role in the economy of things, and I think that then puts 5G in a good position to play a role in supporting the metaverse economy, which is estimated at 1 trillion by 2025 and 5 trillion by 2030. If we look at this in sort of a diagrammatic layer, we can see that the metaverse, the things we've discussed are 5G, cloud infrastructure, digital identity, Web3, mobile, and experience innovation like AR, VR. And these are sort of key enablers to the metaverse. But Obviously, to scale, as we've seen with Web3 layer 2, where you're having things like roll-ups of transactions and other sort of consensus algorithms to improve scalability and production. I think the challenge for layer 2 will be with the increase in bandwidth demand, with the increase in processing demand, with the increasing data, how do we build on that layer 2 for 5G so that we can have the equivalent enablers and accelerators for scale of bandwidth? And that is one of the challenge, but it will be very important as we move from 5G, which is a minimum in terms of latency and bandwidth for the metaverse, to 5.5G and eventually 6G. So some points for consideration before we close. So I think the first one is, how quickly will 5G need to evolve to support increased data and associated bandwidth demand from the metaverse? Is this 5.5G or 6G? And when if we're estimating by 2030, so 8 years time, a $5 trillion opportunity, then we can estimate that there's going to be some volumes, in this metaverse evolution, and there's going to be increased data, and there's going to be increased demand. So 5.5G looks like it's something that will be demanded pretty soon. Digital identity, second point is digital identity is identified as a key to the metaverse. New mobile identity authentications will be required for more experiences, scenarios, and use cases. Web3 is seen as an enabler. Can 5G and Web3 work together on this? So this is one of the questions, and I hinted at it in terms of the slide that asked, if mobile can power Web3 consensus or blockchain consensus algorithms. And this will be pretty key because Web3 is driving decentralization, is driving self-sovereign digital identity. 5G brings connectivity and scale and KYC and AML and trust as well. And can these work together? And do they need to work together for the metaverse? Is that the evolution here? And I think that's a question that we need to explore. And the other question is, how do we operate immersive, interoperable, boundless virtual experiences, businesses and associated financial products while keeping our devices safe? Can 5G, digital identity, and Web3 work together to achieve this? So I think the sort of thing coming up from these considerations are interoperability and integration of the different competing technologies that will enable the metaverse world. And I'll probably stop there for questions, but I hope you have enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.
Hello, David. So we haven't got any questions from the audience yet, but I imagine some will be coming along soon. A notice to the audience, please do put them in soon because we need to stay to time. It's quite frustrating when we get questions just as we have to end. So one of the things I'm a bit puzzled by, you're talking about, David, whether we need 5G, 5.5G or 6G or whatever as connectivity to support the metaverse. What I don't understand, though, is surely, from what I think the metaverse means, a lot of it will be within buildings, and when people are in their homes or their offices, I hear what you say about possible business applications as well. So surely then mostly we'd be using Wi-Fi and the fixed network. So all this stuff about metaverse is going to break 5G, which happened right after that Facebook announcement last October, was it? I was like, why? Sorry, what's your view on that?
Yeah, so I think it's a really good point, Annie, and I think it's a valuable one. I mean, obviously for now, we're seeing a lot of sort of in-home or in-business use of metaverse for the sort of experience and gaming leading that. But why I'm forecasting or estimating or pontificating or guessing that you'll need to move beyond sort of permanent boundaries to mobile is simply the size of the opportunity, $5 trillion US. So I think the GDP is under 100 trillion right now, world GDP. So 5 trillion is actually saying, okay, this is going to represent a lot of value in the wider economy. And we know that the wider economy is about business and interactions, and mobile is a key part of that, with over 6 billion mobile handsets. So if that forecast is correct, and I don't know if it is, right? But if it is, then you can see that metaverse will become part of business, and it will become part of our experiences, it will become part of our work, it will become part of our learning. And we do know that the trend for that has been increasingly to move to mobile. So that's the only thing that sort of points me to say, okay, maybe by 2030, if that forecast is right, then we will be we will be incorporating more mobile into that experience, and that will then put more pressure on 5G. I don't know if it will break it, but it will put pressure on it.
I'm sure it won't. But anyway, okay. David, thank you very much. That was interesting. We hope to have you back at another event in future to follow progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.